Hi guys, it's Kayla and welcome back to Love Tangle. Last time things got pretty insane. I mean, can you believe Paul, guys? He's crazy. It makes me quite glad that we didn't go for his route, considering he announced to everyone last time that we're engaged. So let's see how everyone handles the situation, including Timo, and jump right into the story. Timo and Paul, main story chapter 2. I let out a faint groan as I opened my eyes. That was a strange dream. I stood up then shrugged to myself. What? Was it really a dream? That would be such a cop-out. It wasn't necessarily a bad dream, just a little on the embarrassing side. Timo and Paul fighting over me? That's one dream I'm keeping to myself. Wait, did they fight over her? I don't remember that. It's enough to make me blush, particularly since I can't imagine why I had it. It must be due to Paul's strange remarks last night, that and the commotion that occurred afterwards. Okay, so we didn't see the dream, but she must have just had a dream because of last night. I immediately began recalling what happened. And there you have it. It just so happens that I'm also Kayla's fiance. Paul added, reinforcing his announcement that our families had agreed we were to be married. Michelle explained to me that the two of you are just childhood friends. Timo's calm voice rose up through the noise and confusion. His remark adds fuel to everyone's excitement. Come on, tell us the truth. Which one is it? Cody stepped closer and nudged me with his elbow. Don't tell me you're interested in Kayla too, Cody. And you're not? I know we're just waiting for a chance to slip into the conversation. I've simply grown tired of this ridiculous farce. Sure you have. What's that supposed to mean? Hey, you two, settle down. It's pretty obvious to all of us how exceptionally charming Kayla is. Carlo! Don't imagine for a second that you're innocent. Carlo put his hand on my shoulder and winked at me. I agree. My fiancé is quite charming. It must be tough, huh? Being engaged to someone as charming as her? I suppose you're prepared for all the rivals she's gonna attract. And yet, out of all those rivals, I'm the one. I consider it an honor. I like the sound of that. Okay, let's have a toast to new friendships and love. Carlo raised his glass in the air and the rest of the group happily cried out, cheers. What a nightmare. Wait, don't tell me everyone thought Paul was being serious. The thought suddenly dawns on me as I'm recalling the events from last night. If that's true, I've got to set them straight immediately. I jump out of bed and quickly start getting dressed. Time for some damage control. Morning, Kayla. Good morning. How about a cup of coffee? Joy and Josh are there to greet me when I poke my head into the cafe. Good morning, Josh. Hi, Joy. Coffee sounds great, Josh. Could you please make it strong? Would you like breakfast too? Not today, thanks. The danishes are nice and chewy this morning. Unfortunately, I'm not very hungry. If anything, I'm too restless to get any food down. Come to think of it, I wonder if Joy believes that Paul and I are engaged. She might think it odd if, out of the blue, I try to convince her it's all a misunderstanding. I take a seat at the corner while pondering the implications. Joy then moves to a seat next to me. Kayla, about last night and Paul. Yes? Josh and I were talking and we started to wonder, are you really in some kind of relationship with him? After all, Timo said something about you two being childhood friends, right? We're definitely not engaged to one another, let's make it clear. It takes me a moment to decide how to respond to Joy's question. Well, we're definitely not engaged to one another. Then, have you dated? We haven't dated either. We both share the same dreams and as a kid, we promised to pursue them. That's it. Maybe Paul's just confusing that promise with getting married or something. Maybe Paul's actually in love with you? Joy, stop that. It's not true. The two of us are just friends. I grimace at her. As two people who study animals, Paul and I are simply walking toward the same goal. When I try to explain that to Joy, she doesn't seem to believe me. It probably doesn't help that she's not a researcher. Perhaps I should just give up. At least I made some effort to deny our engagement. Any more and she might turn sarcastic on me. I finish my coffee and stand up to leave. I hope that was the right choice. Thanks for the coffee, Josh. You're leaving already? Dang it! It moved up on Paul's side. Whoops. Yes, I'm in a rush to get to work. I only started there yesterday and I've got a ton of materials I want to read through. That's great, but don't forget to make time for your love if you want to get the most out of life. Okay, Joy, that's enough teasing. I'll see you later. I hurry out of the cafe. It sounds like Joy was actually convinced that Paul and I were engaged. Does that mean everyone else at the party last night might be similarly mistaken? Oh no, that would be horrible. I let out a deep breath. I wonder what Timo thinks, and what if he brings it up here at work? Michelle. My head snaps up at the sound of my name. Oh, good morning, Timo. Timo ignores my greeting and gets right down to business. I want to discuss our plans to care for the injured leopard before and after surgery. I stare at Timo in surprise. He's carrying a pile of research material so large it requires both arms. What was I thinking? Of course Timo wouldn't bring our engagement up at work. I quietly let out a sigh of relief. That's a lot of documentation. Thanks for gathering it all. When did you find the time? It couldn't have been easy investigating all of that with barely even a day's notice.
The leopard care is of utmost importance. I simply did what needed to be done.
Don't tell me you were working last night. Oh, come to think of it, I recall Timo turning down Mr. Chrysler's offer for a drink at the party. You returned to the lab after you left Lilac Court last night, didn't you? Forgive me for not realizing. I should have come to give you a hand.
Don't let it concern you. I was happy to come alone. Besides, I'm the one who told you to leave and walked you home in the first place.
But it's not fair that I get to go home and you have to do all the work alone. We're supposed to be a team.
You only just started working here, and this is your first time caring for an actual Clado leopard, right? Not to mention, you aren't acquainted with our archives yet. I decided it would be a lot faster if I searched for the materials alone.
I feel bad for Timo to track down such a large volume of documentation by himself. However, his tone of voice remains pleasant, and he doesn't actually appear to be upset with me in any way.
Anyhow, it would be inaccurate to say I was here alone.
Pardon?
Paul spent the night here with the injured leopard. He is well versed as a veterinarian. We had a chance to exchange our opinions, too.
Really? Paul came back here after the party, too? A faint sigh of admiration escapes my lips. Come to think of it, Paul didn't drink anything at the party either. He must have known that he would be returning to work. Both Timo and Paul show quite a lot of devotion to their jobs. I realize I'll have to work harder if I want to live up to their standards. Timo and I are going over plans for the leopard's care when we receive a call from Paul. When we arrive at the leopard area, we find the same handsome young man from yesterday there again.
Hello, leopard man.
He looks up at Timo and smiles, and I find myself captivated by the beauty of his expression.
Hello?
Timo nods back, then glances over at me.
Michelle, could you go on ahead? I'll join you and Paul in a moment.
Sure. I nod back, then lower my voice and whisper to Timo. Wasn't that young man here yesterday, too?
He shows up almost every day to watch the leopards.
I see. He must really enjoy them. I take the documents off Timo's hand and continue on ahead. When I nod my head to the young man in parting, he smiles back at me. With the leopard surgery imminent, we spend the afternoon in repeating meetings discussing it in fine detail.
Timo, you'll be in charge of any necessary medicine. Kayla, you'll look after the recovery environment, and I want the rest of you to back them up.
Understood. At this point, everything should be ready for the surgery, right? I suppose we'll need one last conference once the leopard's examination results come back.
Okay then, let's call it a day.
With Paul's call, who is the physician in charge, everyone starts to leave the examination room. When I start to leave with the rest of the group, Paul calls out to me.
You're heading home after this, right? Could I ask you to come back here after you've had time to change?
Oh, sure, okay. I wonder why. I hurry to the locker room and change, then return to the examination room. Oh no, it's about to be a Paul story. Okay, let's go. When I arrive back at the examination room, Paul's reading over documents. There's a pile of papers on his desk that easily rivals what Timo was carrying around this morning. May I ask what you wanted to see me for?
Oh, hey Kayla, thanks for coming. I called you here so we could have a little talk.
About?
About you saying we're not engaged.
Oh no. Oh, that. He playfully smiles back at me.
I thought it best we get this discussion out of the way. We all want to go into this surgery with a clear head, right?
I would have to agree with you on that. My gaze remains fixed on him. Do you realize that this misunderstanding you've caused by saying that?
There's no misunderstanding.
He smiles back while taking a hold of my hand. Listen, I remember we made a promise about 3 years ago, but I don't recall saying anything about marriage. As I quietly shake my head, I notice the warmth of his hand surrounding mine. We both dreamed of becoming researchers, and we promised one another that we'd achieve those dreams.
Of course, and that promise was important to me. In reality, I think neither of us have fully achieved our dreams though, right?
You're right, Paul. You and I have made it this far to the Clado Zoo, and this is where our dreams begin.
However, that's not the only promise we made.
It's not? Paul takes a step closer to me. I notice he tightens his grip on my hand. I reflexively try to take a step back, only to bump into the wall behind me.
Paul's actually pretty cute, guys, and I plan on keeping that other promise, regardless of whether you remember it or not.
He leans close enough that his breath faintly begins to tickle my cheek. It becomes obvious to me that I wouldn't be able to get away from him, even if I tried. Paul, wait, stop this. What is this promise you keep talking about? I don't have the faintest clue. What other promise could there be beside the one we made 3 years ago? If he's right, why can't I remember it? Paul's expression has turned serious.
How could I forget a promise that he seems to feel so strongly about? The moment our eyes meet, my heart begins to race. I'm sorry, Paul, but I can't remember making any other promises, particularly one about marriage. Do you really think I could forget something as important as that? Forgive me, this has me completely confused. I start to grow flustered. Paul looks way too serious to be making a joke, which could only mean he believes we made a promise to marry one another that I've since forgotten. If that's true, I'd feel horrible. That's all right. The look in his eyes as he gazes back at me reminds me of our past. If you've forgotten, that just means I'll have to remind you once again how much I love you. Oh my god, this is so serious. Both as your close friend and as a man. I'll have to become your boyfriend first. I stand there feeling bewildered. What do I say? We've been friends forever. Sometimes he even feels like family to me. I never imagined he would confess that he loves me. My mind is completely blank. There you have it. Surprised? I can tell he's smiling as he talks softly in my ear, and I find it impossible to not feel agitated by the playful tone in his voice. You're teasing me, aren't you? I wouldn't quite say that yet. After all, I meant every word I just said. His lips are close enough to touch mine as he whispers back. I avert my gaze to avoid the embarrassment of staring directly into his eyes. Of course, as friends, we've always been close to one another. Still, he must have some idea how nervous he's making me when he stares at me from a distance like this. I'm not that childish to try and dredge up some promise we might have made as kids while we were playing. When he smiles suggestively at me, I'm reminded of 3 years that have passed. He never used to look this handsome when he smiled. Instead, I used my mind like an adult and went with a more traditional approach. What do you mean? I asked your father for your hand in marriage and received his blessing. He asked our dad? I gather the custom of asking the father's consent first goes back to Bonaparte's time. What? So as I see it, I've received your father's promise that I can marry you. I suddenly blurt out, You're kidding! When did you do this? The moment I found out that I'd be working here. And what did my father actually say? He said okay, as long as you didn't have a boyfriend. I don't believe this. I cover my face and groan to myself. Who could have guessed Paul would go to my father and ask for my hand in marriage? So hopefully you understand now. I'm not making anything up or joking or blowing anything out of proportion. I'm officially your fiancé, got it? This sounds more like a proposal to me than an actual engagement, don't you think? Unsure what to say or how to react, I slowly peek out at Paul between my fingers. That's right, I'm sure I've heard somewhere that you ask the father's consent, simply to make sure he's okay with you proposing. You can't just say we're engaged before coming to me. Are you gonna accept that I'm your fiancé, or aren't you? When he presses me for an answer, I find myself unable to reply. Or perhaps you have a boyfriend? Yes, and his name's Timo. No. Dang it, we should have lied. I answer honestly, then begin to blush when I realize perhaps I shouldn't have. I've essentially told him it's okay to propose to me, haven't I? Paul has me right where he wants me. The question is, how can I break free from his crutches? I've never seen you blush so deeply before. Paul stifles a laugh. Are you starting to see me for a man that I've become? How do you expect me to respond to that? You remember the promise we made 3 years ago, right? Yes, of course. Well, that promise is extremely important to me. I've come here to Kaleido to pursue my animal research, not to become your fiancé. And I think that's a fair argument. In that case, even though you've got my father's permission, put all this talk about engagement on hold for now, please. In other words, you're not turning down my proposal? Why is it that you're always so positive all the time? I have to remain positive if I want to succeed as an animal researcher. Wouldn't you agree? Paul's cheerful smile brings on a wave of nostalgia. He would choose this moment to smile at me like that. I'll stop calling you my fiancé for the time being. However, I have no intention of abandoning my proposal. Understood? You're joking, right? No, I'm not. Now, will you join me for dinner? I promise not to bring up our engagement even once. After all, some proposals only seem to scare you, so I'll just have to start as your boyfriend and work my way up. Have you always been this assertive? As horribly embarrassed as I feel, I find myself staring intently at Paul. This friend I've known since childhood is showing me sides of himself I've never seen before. Paul quietly frowns and for a moment seems vaguely troubled. However, this concerned look is quickly replaced by a cheerful smile. Well, I think I've answered all your questions, and we do have this surgery coming up. His tone suddenly changes as he glances over at the pile of papers on his desk, which leads me to my next topic. Yes, I find myself growing nervous. What's he gonna say next? I didn't actually call you here just to talk about our engagement, or lack thereof. To my surprise, Paul calmly begins talking about the upcoming surgery. You've been helping with examinations and preparing for the surgery. However, I also want you to assist me during the surgery. Can you give me an answer now?
Are you sure?
I trust you, and I value your ability as a researcher. Is there any reason I shouldn't pick you?
No. I lightly shake my head. Suddenly I have a revelation. That very moment it dawns on me that Paul and I are facing one another as two researchers. Let's mention about the engagement, maybe as a reason not to. I pause for a moment before giving him my answer. If you promise not to discuss our engagement, I guess I'll assist you. It's only partially meant to be a joke. He'll give me a heart attack if he continues to go around calling me his fiancé.
I suppose you're trying to avoid thinking about me to the point of distraction. Although I enjoy watching you squirm, I want you to feel relaxed. Our discussions will remain strictly about work.
Paul sounds like he's joking, but I get the impression he's making an effort to be serious. Suddenly it dawns on me what I've just done. Oh no, what made me say that? I'm sorry, I was trying to tease you and I shouldn't have. From now on, I'll keep myself focused on work too.
Okay, I'm glad you agree. You're a great researcher, and I have no problem believing you'll act like one.
Following that, he quietly smiles at me.
Just be warned, once the surgery succeeds and the leopard recovers, all bets are off.
What do you mean, all bets are off? Paul grins.
Since your father has given me his blessing, I think I have a right to an answer, don't you?
What? I can't just give you an answer at the drop of a hat. I still think of you as my childhood friend.
You have until the leopard recovers. Isn't that long enough?
How many years have we been friends? Now you're suddenly asking me to think of you as my fiancé? It's not that easy.
But it sounds like you're at least willing to consider it. Look, just give it your serious consideration. That's all I'm asking you for now. For the time being, we just have to work together. Not as friends, but as researchers.
Paul appears quite confident.
During that time, I'll prove to you exactly how worthy I am of being your fiancé. I'm confident you'll stop seeing me as your childhood friend and start seeing me as a man.
He firmly asserts while gazing into my eyes. So that's the end of the chapter. Look forward to the next one.
Talk about a major confidence. I could learn a thing or two from Paul. You mean for your acting? Obviously. What other reason is there? Good question. Maybe to help woo the girls?
Shut! What are you trying to say?
You act so childish sometimes.
No, I don't.
By the way, Kayla, that new coworker of yours, Minyan, in the 3rd chapter,
Ryan, are you sure you should tell her?
What? I'm not supposed to?
Nathaniel will be upset if he finds out you did.
It's supposed to be a secret? That's too bad. I get the feeling things are going to be exciting, though.
Whoa, Josh, careful.
I haven't given anything away. Anyhow, Caleb, a big event awaits you in Chapter 3. I hope you enjoy it.
Hey, Ryan, that was my line. They're so cute. Oh, I miss the Cody and Ryan days, guys. Timo thinks it was the best choice. Thank God, back on track. Okay guys, since we finished another full chapter, I'm going to stop here and we'll proceed to chapter 3, the Timo focused chapter, next time. I hope you guys are excited. Thanks for watching. Bye!
Tonight